If you're not, if you leave it exposed, you get more quick hookups.
Caught him! Woo! Look at that! Like I said, he's huge.
Didn't realize they were that big here.
Oh yeah.
You even live here.
Hey folks, welcome back to Bullets and Brass. Going to do a quick run through of what I used to catch that bass the other day and what I've mostly been fishing with, because we are in pre-spawn here, getting close to spawn, and it's basically all sight fishing. It's all, you can see the fish, you're throwing right to it, you're throwing, in their vicinity, you're not casting, retrieving. And I just figured I would show it. Most of you, this is old hat. There's a million videos about this, but whatever. Green pumpkin, blue flake, lunker log, 6-inch. However, it is worth noting, I only had one of these with me. So when I reached in the bag and was like, oh, let's throw a green pumpkin one, if I had lost it on that fish, I would not have had it for the rest of the day. Is what it is. But you can see, they are a relatively stiff worm. It doesn't flop around a whole lot, but it has a nice little wiggle to it. If you give that a shake, it shimmies. So what I had was an extremely light Texas rig. This weight is a 1/8 ounce tungsten worm weight. That's it. Just enough to get it to sink to the bottom. The next step is the hook. And these are 4/0 hammer hooks. Each brand does their sizing slightly differently, and you also have the fact that just because it's the same style hook doesn't mean it's the same weight. This hook is pretty stout. For this technique, if you're going for bigger fish, you actually want a pretty heavy hook. You don't need some giant monster hook, you're not saltwater fishing, but you don't want to use that fine wire hook you might use for smaller bass. You're going to need something stout enough to hold up. And the last item you need are bobber stops. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rig this up for you. I'm going to rig this up right here, how it would look on the line. And then that's it. The thing to remember when you're doing a bobber stop is you're sacrificing however much line you put through here, because each one of these has a loop. I don't know if that's visible. So you don't want to put a ton through that loop. So I only put an inch, inch and a half through, and then you pull the bobber stop up and over. Now the reason I say you're sacrificing this tag end, you see that bend? That's a sharp corner. That bit of line is trash. Now I'm not going to cut it off until I'm done, but that'll be the tag end sticking out of my knot. I'm going to slide the bobber stop up just to get out of my way. Then you slide the weight on. If you go, hey, let me spend as little as possible, these things are expensive, I lose them, blah, blah, blah. Cheap weights, A, won't have a cup in the bottom, but they also may have burrs inside. If you have a burr inside there, you're going to cut your line. This is sliding along your line over and over and over. The fish are going to yank and shake this. They're going to be throwing this all over the place. It's not going to be a good thing if your line gets abraded by your weight. Now you don't need to go crazy, but there's an awful lot of good quality options that are all roughly in the same price range. Then I'm going to take my hook. I did a Palomar knot because that is one of the strongest knots available and is relatively easy to tie. It forms a relatively neat little knot, and one of the key things about the Palomar knot is that you've got 2 loops going through the eye of the hook. So instead of having all of your weight on one loop, you have 2 loops. Is it a sure thing? No, but usually Palomar knots don't fail right there. So now we're going to cut off the tag end, which includes the portion we didn't like, but now we're going to Texas rig this, which Slide it up and over. If you need details on how to do this, there's a million videos. I like to slide mine up and over the eye of the hook, completely burrowing the eye of the hook. And the reason I like to do that is fewer weeds, fewer hassles, less snags. Now, you can see my hook is exposed. You can hide that. You can tuck it into the bait a little bit. I don't always do that. I tend to leave it exposed unless I'm having issues. If you're going into dense cover where that's absolutely going to snag on something, definitely tuck it in there a little bit. If you're not, if you leave it exposed, you get more quick hookups. And that is it. That's how I Texas rig. That is what I used. We will do a quick segment here on the line, the rod, and the reel, but I'll film that in a minute.
Look at that.
Look, folks, I am recording, right? Yes.
Okay.
Gigantic.
That is a big bass.
Nice and easy.
Awesome.
Hook removal?
I got it.
Can I touch it? There you go.
If you want to touch it, quick, come on.
Go
You want
touch
to touch
him.
him, Minty?
Real quick.
Come on.
You gotta go back in the water.
Yeah. Touched it.
All right.
She's like, I'm out of here.